A soft breeze moves curtains gently, curtains that frame a window that looks out to a beautiful view and with a blood red sky. Siegfried, you open your eyes and you awaken into the dream that you've had for many nights. Not every night, but many nights. You are in your childhood home. And I understand that this might be dropping you into it, but that's what we like to do sometimes. Jeff, I would like you to describe what Siegfried's childhood room looks like before the embrace.
So it's stylistically quite different. For one, it's in Germany, not in London, which is where he's from. So that in itself lends itself to a sort of different architecture and structure. His room itself is fairly plain. It's got like this mid-shade blue that the walls are all painted in. Light enough, but not too light. The like dressers and like nightstands are all the same color and same style. Like it's clear that they've been built either bought as a set or like built by hand to resemble each other, not hodgepodge. It's like already very organized. Not necessarily of his own design, but likely his parents that have done that. Uh, the room's design is like of surprising taste already. It seems like someone who has either a knowledge of interior design or has hired someone to do that. Um, and the objects in it are all of high quality and seem to have cost quite a bit to make or purchase one way or the other.
Perfect. And as you sort of step into this dream once more, I think you make a really excellent point. I think Siegfried would have been influenced by art and craftsmanship from a very early age. So as you move across this room with these blue walls that glimmer under that mysterious red light beaming from outside, it sort of shines purple as you step through. You know you're in a dream. A lot of the time when you're dreaming, you know you're in a dream. And you look upon the wall and you see a piece of art that you remember from your childhood. What does it depict?
Its style is like that of like an older classical piece, something from the 1700s or 1800s. Sort of like this like abstract colored landscape where the colors of the sky are sort of very enhanced with like purples and oranges and blues in a way that the normal sky wouldn't actually look. But it's sort of this artistic enhancement of it in a sort of strange way. Uh, but the portrait itself is very simple. It's basically just like a field with a couple of trees kind of dotting the outskirts as a frame on the left and right sides of it. And then there's this kind of like sort of like regular green field that suddenly like then splits into this crazy like multicolored exaggerated skyline, this sort of like strange contrast between space and land that seems to like highlight its strangeness.
And deep within this picture, you look at it for a moment and you drink it in. And they say with looking at fine art, often it requires one takes a step or two back from the canvas to truly marvel in its detail and its its wonder. And your eyes stray across this landscape, and everything looks as you remember from your childhood, but one detail: a figure, silhouetted and standing upon the horizon. This figure has never been in this picture. What does that feel like when you see that something has changed in something you've known all of your life?
It's sort of like strange, indescribable feeling. Like part of you wants to rationalize and just say like it must have always been that. It's like if you like looked at a picture of yourself like with your family and there was like a different family member that was never there. This sort of like strange familiarity mixed with this like stark uh foreignness to it. It kind of makes him question like am I remembering the picture wrong and that was there, or maybe it wasn't there? And then like the more he thinks on it, the more it kind of goes through his head again and again. Of like, no, that's not supposed to be there. Like, what is that? Um, and I'll kind of give away from his wide glance at the entire thing and kind of begin to like move forward towards it to try to see what shape this foreign silhouette has.
It's peculiar because the closer that you get to the picture, the larger the figure seems to become within the image, where once it was almost like a speck. You'd miss it if you weren't paying attention. Now, when you look at it, the figure is sizable enough for you to make out details. And you see that the figure in the picture is you.
Siegfried will like jump as if he had like seen a film with a jump scare in it. This kind of like sudden shock that'll hit him, and just kind of like shake his head in confusion as he's now like staring himself in the face, but in this like strange like impressionistic painter style. That's that doesn't make sense.
A voice speaks to you from slightly behind you over your right shoulder, and it says, "You see, Siegfried, now you will last forever." And as you turn, you see the smiling form of Vincent looking at you from across the dreamscape. And you suddenly awaken. Where do you awaken, Siegfried? Are you at the club or back home or somewhere else?
I think at this stage, Siegfried has made a regular habit of sleeping in that same office room. Uh, he just spends almost all of his waking time here, and it seems like a waste to go home just to come right back. He's like thrown so many hours working at this place now, just over and over and over again, that it's sort of become a bad habit. So we'll just like shock awake again in like his office chair over the computer, like in sleep mode, and just kind of like shake at his head. Um, and kind of like look around, like expecting he'll like turn around, expecting Vincent to be like standing behind him in real life. Like that's how real the dream and the experience felt to him. And just kind of like look around the office and likely seeing it empty. We'll just kind of wonder at the vividness and suddenness of it, especially given his intent to speak with Vincent soon. Anyways, he can't help but like to think like his mind has been read and Vincent already knows, and like he's come to visit him and punish him in the dream or something like that. It's a strange feeling.
It is a strange feeling. It's startling to think that potentially, you don't know, this could be, in fact, a genuine invasion of your mind, or perhaps it's just a dream. It's difficult to tell. But as you begin to spiral into the musings of this thought, there is a sharp rap upon the door. It's a familiar one. You know that Francis, the ghoul that works as sort of the lead manager, as it were, the public-facing manager of the Cirque du Soir, makes a habit of leaving or delivering blood bags to you. It is the benefit of you having this club that not only can you, have a, blood brought to you, but you can also indulge in the Crimson Room should you wish. But you know that it's starting to play havoc with you. Perhaps you haven't been hunting. I mean, you can tell me, but like, if you, the fact of the matter is, if you drink out of blood bags for too long, you start to get. It's like eating fast food all the time. It just isn't good for you.
And I
But
think
you
that's
know that there's
exactly
one
what
way.
he's. Yeah, I think that's exactly what he has been doing. I think it would make perfect sense that when you have, it's like when you have the Taco Bell that's just around the corner, and it's always just right there, and it's like I could go grocery shopping, but it's just so easy that I think that's like exactly the sort of habit that he's fallen into of like he'll wake up in the night, Francis will knock on the door, bring him his McDonald's breakfast equivalent of blood, and that'll kind of be his routine. So when he hears the knock, he'll just come in as normal, just as he's used to.
Yeah, Francis wanders in. He's very butlerish, Francis. Now, I mean, you can decide between yourselves, but as to whose ghoul Francis actually is, because I know he works at the club. I can't remember who said who actually, made him that way. But either way, he serves both of you. Perhaps you both feed him. That would be confusing and weird, but cool. But in one hand, he carries sort of like a tray, and you can see that there are these blood bags that have been warmed to a certain temperature. You're pleased to know. But also in his other hand, he's able to balance a hanger. He has essentially been sent to do your dry cleaning at some point. For now, he hangs up what would be a pressed suit of a style of your choosing. For whether or not you do decide to attend the opera, Francis is good enough at his job to know that if you decide you're going to do it, that suit should be ready, whether or not you make the decision or not. So he just hangs it up, and then with a sharp nod, unless there's anything you wish to ask him, or he will just continue his duties.
Yeah, Siegfried will just like put up a hand of thanks. He doesn't. He always kind of struggles with knowing like how much to treat a ghoul like a human versus like a robot that just like is made out of flesh. So like nod and say thank you, but like nothing more. And I'll take the blood bag and kind of step up, like pull the ticket to the opera out of his pocket and kind of like look at it for a moment, and then up at the suit and kind of like turn his head side to side, pondering. But then after a short moment, he'll take the suit off the hanger and like see how much time he has to see if he needs to start getting dressed already.
And as you do that, we're going to move to whatever location is currently habited by Toff. Toff, where have you woken up, and what are you up to this beautiful night?
Toff wakes up in what was once his flat when he had returned from his band tour prematurely. He found a note hanging upon it from the landlord, letting him know that because he hadn't paid his month's rent for several of those months, he had been evicted. So the door was locked. So what you would see is Toff kind of laying on this ratty mattress. It has there's no bedding on it at all to speak of. It's probably not something most would probably lay on, but he's sleeping on it. And as you would kind of pan over to the door, you would just see where the jamb of the door is just shattered, where he kicked the door in, and he's kind of makeshift shut it. Yeah, so he would just kind of like his eyes would slowly roll open. He'd look up at the ceiling, see like a cockroach kind of scurrying across, and he would just kind of breathe. And I would slowly get up. He would reach over, grab a bottle of bourbon, put it in his mouth, swish it around before he spits it onto the floor. Kind of puts the cap back on, drops it back among the mess that is there, and proceeds to probably do the sniff check of clothes as he's kind of pulling it up off the floor. Though it probably doesn't stink because he probably doesn't sweat. But could be fouler things, I guess, could be on it. So he does it, maybe it's just a latent habit from when he was human. So he picks it up and sniffs it, and he pulls on the cleaner clothes, and he goes, and probably the only thing that's probably really, there's two things in his apartment or his flat that is well taken care of. One is the new leather jacket that he has purchased because the other one was riddled with bullet holes. And that's hanging from this hanger that is on a hook on the shattered door. And the other is the violin case, which is kind of sitting on this ratty bookshelf those are the only things that are pristine and probably stand out in this place. So he pulls the jacket on, kind of looks around his flat. His eyes just rest for a moment on the violin case. And then he heads out. He's hungry, so he's going to go find some place to eat.
Perfect. And as I make the checks to see who you find, I will also give you this piece of information as well. As you pull on your new jacket, perhaps you're wondering how long this jacket will remain clear of bullet holes as you put it on. But as you do, you feel the weight of your phone hit your chest, and you remember to check it. And in doing so, you see that you have already received a message from Sid Day, Primogen of the Bruja, and your sire. The message is brief, and it states this exactly. Bear with me just whilst I bring it up. Okay. So the text simply says Carfax Abbey, and it gives a time later in the evening, about 10 o'clock. No, let's make it 11. Sorry, I wasn't reading my own notes. 11 o'clock, Carfax Abbey. It says, come alone.
Yeah, he would probably pause for that moment as he steps out of the his flat, standing in this dark hallway. And he would smile at that. He's been probably, I don't know how much time has passed from last session to this one, but he's been a little unnerved since talking with Donica. When Donica was kind of talking about, I mean, he tried to brush it off, like whatever. It's how the Bruja are, but really he was. It's even what Donica was saying is a little outside of what Bruja would do. So yeah, so he would actually really be looking forward to seeing Sid. He hasn't seen him in months.
Yeah, and you have been in touch during your time on tour, but really it's only been fleeting. And also, none of the texts gave mention to the fact that the Bruja are conspicuous by their absence. No longer do they dwell within the bowels of the world's end. They seem to have gone, which, as you rightly say, is kind of weird for them because they're usually quite loud. So yeah, that is a
quick question. And you could, I don't know if you want to tell me or not. How about Ruby? Has Toph seen Ruby at all since he's been? I imagine he's been back for a couple weeks.
Yeah. Okay. If you would, let me think. Let me come back to that because there's a specific reason why I need to.
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, we'll say, okay, what we'll say now is you have seen Ruby. You will have seen her once, but it would have just been passing and perhaps you didn't speak. You just saw her in a club or something.
Well, if I remember correctly, last time Toph and Ruby had an interaction, it did not go well in Toph's favor.
That's
so he
true,
probably,
yeah.
probably would have avoided it. It's one of those crossing the street kind of deals.
That's right. Okay, well, in that case, then we'll agree and say that, yeah, you saw Ruby, but from a distance, sure. So you have a bit of time, and whilst you decide where you might go to look for food, we're going to move our vision to Donica. And we're going to ask the same with Donica. Where have you woken up, and what's Donica's plan? What's he been doing? Oh, by the way, sorry, it is the night after last session. So this is the next night.
Donica always wakes up in his lair. He makes a point of always going back there because it's safe. And he has more than once told Siegfried he shouldn't sleep in the office. It's not a safe place to sleep, even though it's our property. You shouldn't sleep there. You should find a lair and create a place that is safe for you. But nonetheless, he continues to stay there, but Donica will always go back to his subterranean lair, which is well hidden and well protected at this stage. And as he does every day, or every night, he'll wake up and check in on the world. With his multi-monitors sort of system that he has. But once he's done that, his real plan for the evening, this is not the night of the gathering of all the with Fag and stuff, right? That's tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's correct. So the meeting of which you speak is scheduled for the night after this one.
Okay. Yeah, so then he would probably do some work trying to set up a ShrekNet site for Adam, and trying to make money from that, and getting contact out there to vampires that he knows, that he can trust. So Nosferatu, basically, people that he's met before. I can't remember what he was called. There was like a very tall, sort of freaky one that I met at the Adventure Tower one time, and basically like getting it out there that Nosferatu can potentially buy weapons if they need to through Donica would be his like plan for like the early part of the evening, and then after that he might try and sneak along and pretend that he's someone he's not, and go to the opera to make sure that Siegfried doesn't get killed.
Perfect. Okay. And as you are checking your multi-monitored system, I believe last session you said there were 9 monitors in total, which I love the idea. It's like the back computer,
yes.
a wall of monitors of different readouts and things. On one of them, there pops up an email, an encrypted email sent through ShrekNet, and it simply says in the subject shares. And it says from the name simply says the Underprince.
Is there any like message or just shares?
So the message inside, I was just like to see whether you were going to open it or not, but that's fine.
Yeah.
You're confident, you're protected. You look in, and there isn't actually a message in this email. All there is just a handy dandy guide to some of the shares that are available within ShrekNet. These are information shares and these are property shares, all of things. Basically, this is how like a lot of Nosferatus get their money. They just purchase like just shares because like they don't need to be present at all, and they know that they can just look at the numbers of a company or a particular piece of merchandise and just make money and never ever be seen. And you just get like an email full of tips about what kind of shares might be appropriate to invest in, but no personal message whatsoever.
Do I have any idea who this Underprince is?
Okay, so why don't you give me a computer's check, which I believe is your... Obviously, it's a very fine skill of yours, but let me just check. Because I always forget how to play this game. That is computer and intelligence, please.
It's going to be 10 dice.
Of course it is.
Didn't think I would need more than 8, but here we go. 30. So 6.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to say that's enough. And I forgot this. You probably remembered, but 1s obviously get rid of your successes, and 10s, you know.
Yeah, reroll.
Cool. Yeah, so that's going to be enough, I'd say, for you to have had a little bit of a peek through ShrekNet. And the thing that you have detected about this thing, that there are many layers of code and encryption, and indeed places to go on ShrekNet, and that there are very, very deep places within ShrekNet. It's very symbolic of the Nosferatu existence, really, layers upon layers. And you know that the Underprince, from your snooping, is in fact a lead administrator within the system, someone who pulls the strings within the machine. And while you're getting to grips with ShrekNet and they're incredible at computers, you imagine that someone out there must be like a hacker, like not a god, but like someone who's really fucking good.
Yep.
So they're infamous in their name, but you've never interacted with this Underprince before.
So I'm probably being included then because I am more and more involved in ShrekNet as opposed to it being targeted. Like Donica would think so, but he's probably being included because he's one of, or like approaching the point where he's like a decent sized player in this, as opposed to this person sending a direct email to him, which is kind of encouraging, or like relaxing, as opposed to like someone targeting him and whatever. He'll look at through these shares and see what he can do. Like he's got quite a lot of cash from all the drug selling. So he's like pretty well sorted, but he definitely would be interested in investing in some things and manipulating his money in that way. And the less like he's already pretty insulated from like any sort of direct crime, but the less that he has to do that, and the more that he can just like make money by moving numbers around, the better. It's like not something he's super familiar with yet, but it's something that I think that he would get good at. So he'll like look at, through the list and see if anything like grabs him, but he might want to talk to. Yeah, he would talk to Tess, wouldn't he? Someone who's like financially smart. Like Fage's not going to have a clue about modern money, and so he would like maybe think about who he could talk to about it and look through his contact book.
Yes, and yeah, absolutely. I think it is a very encouraging thing that this mysterious figure is just out of the blue giving you like these tips. And yeah, it does feel, and you do feel like you've been making a lot of progress with ShrekNet. Like at the moment, it's one of your driving ambitions, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so whilst you're looking over that, then you said you're also going to make preparations to go to meet Siegfried. Is that right?
Yeah, so I want to make a website for Adam so that people who want to buy guns, I mean, there'll be like several layers of encryption so that you can only get into that if I've directly told you you can go there. So I want to make sure that people have to go through me, and so I can cream some money off the top before they get in there. So I'll spend some time doing that. I imagine with like Donna's skill set, like it wouldn't take too long. Get a Squarespace or something set up pretty quickly.
You enter the offer code from the podcast.
The Bim Bam or whatever. And then once I've done that, I would want to find Siegfried and either go with him to this opera as someone who I'm not, so use my mask without the faces, or if he says I shouldn't go, then I will just disguise myself and go as someone else. I think it's much of a muchness, but I'd rather that he knew I was going.
Okay, well, in that case, then we will move to the point where you can, just head out to the club then. And whilst we're sort of waiting for you to get there, we will return then in that case to Toff. Toff, I see that you've written into the notes that you'd like to pick up a new burner phone, so you absolutely can do that. Is that something that you're going to just take, or are you going to buy one?
He would definitely buy it. He would definitely buy one.
Okay, and just so I'm sure, if you wouldn't mind just reading out what you're going to be sending with on that, just so everyone else knows.
Yeah, so you would see he would step out back onto into the street. He's kind of breaking out this packaging for this phone. There's a trash can nearby. He tosses the packaging there. It doesn't go into the trash can, but he leaves it where it falls. And he kind of jams a card into the bottom of it, whatever the minutes or whatever. Yeah, so he just bangs out this message. And I just want to let folks know. So Toff doesn't use any sort of punctuation. He doesn't use any sort of capitalization. And for some damn reason, this phone, it's only texting in caps. So the message is all in caps. And it says, "Oi, man, just wanted to let you know, no hard feelings. And I want to make it up to you. Meet me at the Mayflower." And that's a text that he sends to Johnny, his replacement in the band.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. There isn't a reply just yet, but there isn't any sign to say that the text has been read either. So you've sent that out, and you said you wanted to feed as well. I won't actually make you roll for it. What kind of person do you reckon you at the top will have been keeping his eye out for this evening's meal, as you hear?
So he'd be looking mostly down alleyways, looking for maybe a drunk or someone who's just strung out. So he's looking for that smell, someone that not only is maybe alcohol, but maybe some drugs are still in their blood. So that's what he would do, kind of walk up to this guy, just kind of slump down in this alley. Oi, mate, looks like you're having a rough one, huh? We chat with him for a little bit before he actually takes his due from this poor chap.
Yeah, and he desperately tries to slur sentences together, but he's clearly strung up on everything. Really cheap, nasty drugs that have been mixed with goodness knows what. and because of the state of him, I won't actually make you do the checks to feed from him. You just can. But you know what they say, Toph, you are what you eat.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when Toph kind of gets up from this guy, and he kind of just rubs his or licks his finger and rubs it across where he bit the guy. So there's still blood smeared a little bit around his neck. But he kind of almost swayed, and he has to put his hand on the side of the building. He feels a rough, coarse brick under it. But his kind of the world is tilting a little bit on him. He looks down at the guy and he says, "Some good shit." And he would just kind of stagger his way down the alley back to the street.
And from that point, you actually receive a text responding to your message. It is indeed Johnny. And it says, at what time, question mark.
What time is it now? Early evening?
Yeah, so I'll say it's about 8. No, a bit earlier. Probably be a bit earlier because the opera will start at 7:30 and we haven't got there yet. So I'm going to say 7, about 7, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, I'd say probably Toph's not far from the Mayflower. He'd say he would put 20 minutes, and he would misspell minutes and put a question mark. Actually, no, he's not going to put he's not going to put a question mark. He's going to put 20 misspelled minutes, all in caps.
And almost immediately you get a response, just one letter, K. So we'll return to you in 20 minutes. Well, not literal, but we'll return to you then. In the meantime, Donica, you arrive at the club, and Siegfried, you're there as well. Well, in fact, we'll ask Siegfried, what have you been up to, just briefly in the time it took for Donica to get to you, and then when he arrives.
So Donica will stumble into like an exceedingly strange scene. Siegfried is dressed in his suit already, just like a straight black suit, white shirt, like just super classic, classy look. But he's sitting on the ground. He's got his office chair pushed against the wall, and he's got like an octagon of like 2x4s made of wood sat on the ground in a circle around him, and he's sitting in the center of it.
For fuck's sake. More of this? Did you talk to him yet?
Siegfried will like kind of like snap out and like look at the clock to see how long he's been there, and then like nod and like pile up the wood from around him, and like take part of it, like rub his hand against it so it like splinters into his finger, and then he'll put the splinter under his tongue and just leave it there, and then stand up. I sent him a message. We're gonna talk, but I have this, and I'll kind of like point to his suit first. This is just for protection, just in case.
Right. He doesn't really know what to say. It's so weird. I was going to go with you. Well, not with you, but with you.
You have a ticket?
Well, no, but I'm everyone. I'm anyone. And he'll like and like become Siegfried, and then like and become someone else that we know. Like I can be anyone. I'll just find someone outside and eat them and go in instead of them.
Yeah. So if we were like say it and then immediately realize that you can like either 1 transform or 2 be invisible. So pick your method and they'll all be fine, and they'll just kind of like shake his head, as if he didn't just like collect his like ritual circle of wood from around himself, and just kind of like look and just say, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I guess that works. Why?
Well, just meeting with someone that we don't know who it is, you could be in real danger. We don't know anything about this situation. He will say, and also like it'll be totally lost on him that he can like literally shapeshift, and like that is dark sorcery of some kind, but it doesn't feel like it because he's not like chanting. And like he thinks that what Siegfried is doing is weird, but his stuff is like normal somehow.
Yeah, and there's like the exact mirrored concept of in Siegfried's mind of like, I'm just casting these vampire spells and you're over there like turning into me. So who's really the crazy one here? Just yeah, I mean, it'd be pretty brash for someone to attack in a crowded public area if that was indeed the plan. But I guess with vampires, there's worse things than outright attacks that people can do. Setups, conversations, other schemes and plans. If you're willing to subject yourself to a couple hours of what to you will probably be torture, then I guess it's probably a good idea.
Well, I've got nothing else to do. I guess I could just hang out here at the club, but seems prudent.
I'll never say no to some backup. These days, you can never be too careful. Everyone's on edge. Tensions are high. Who knows what'll happen? Worst case scenario is you sit and you enjoy a show, and I talk to whoever this person is.
Well, one of us will enjoy the show. Francis? And he'll like click his fingers.
The door opens. Yes, sir.
A suit. A nice one, please.
Yes, sir. Immediately. In fact, because you're probably you are fairly wealthy now, you'll have a choice of suits. So in that case, you'll turn and say, the usual evening cut, sir, or something a little off the cuff.
Whatever you think is fanciest, Francis. I'm not really too au fait with this sort of gathering. Whatever you think is the fanciest thing I have.
As you say, sir. And he goes and prepares. You can see there's a slight look of, I really wish I'd known you were going, because then I would have pressed your suit at the same time. But he's a good ghoul. He's going to do his job. So yeah, he goes to do that.
I've never been to an opera myself, but I think if you're ever going to wear your best clothes, it's that. So.
Yeah, it would be pretty standard to show up in a tux or a fine suit or something. It's generally looked pretty down on to not.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a very big tradition that when you go to the opera, you do dress to impress. You dress in your very best. So it isn't long before you're provided with a fine tuxedo. Donica, I won't say it's as brash as a white tuxedo. I think you'll have a black tuxedo because while you're flash, you don't want to draw too much attention to yourself. So a nice black tuxedo, and if anything, it's uniformal. So you could, if you had a normal face, you'd blend in anyway, wouldn't you? But that was really harsh if you have a normal face. But it's true. That's right. One thing does play on your mind, just because obviously we don't recap. The other thing that plays on your mind is you've been giving it a lot of thought before you go to the opera, just so if you want to set anything in place, you can now do so. The fact that this individual, Gregory Knight, has been on the news recently, 6 months since he vanished, and you made the discovery at the end of last session that his last sighting, to your mind anyway, was within your club. And your CCTV footage shows this.
Oh yes, okay.
So just a reminder, because I was like, I should probably remember to tell you that.
Okay, well, I will look into that then. I want to watch the footage and possibly delete it. Like make sure that if the cops come around here, that we're in good, that we have a story and that it's ready, that kind of thing. So I can always follow afterwards to the thing, but I'll invest some time into that first.
Absolutely. So you just make that watertight. Maybe you loop some of that footage, the trick that you first employed within the hospital, actually, to shield yourself from any repercussions in that regard. I would want to look into it and see like what happened. Like, did anything happen in our club regarding him? Who he was talking to? Was it Vincent? Probably yes. But like look into what the situation was and if there's anything that in our establishment points to why he's gone missing, like was he talking to a vampire or something? Yeah, in fact, he actually left the club by being chucked out. Essentially, he was being fairly rowdy, and while he's a fairly popular musician and like he's not like a huge celebrity, but like he's fairly popular in London. He's quite a local celebrity, and he was ejected from the club and drunk. He actually wandered down into an alleyway opposite, which I incorrectly said last session. I will amend this. That alleyway was in Camden. It's not. It's in Soho, where your club is.
Okay, so he wasn't like chatting to any of the vampires in our club, but then was kicked out for being rowdy, and then he wandered down the road. So I think that I might do some investigating in that direction before I head out to the club or to the opera. I mean. Okay,
well, you don't have that long, so it's entirely up to you, really, how you spend that time. I'll say, you can get around London fairly quickly with vampiric powers or whatever, so you can get there just as the doors are about to close, I'll say. So if you like, you can make like a few checks before you leave, but that's up to you.
Tricky, because I actually have to find a ticket before I go to the opera, and I plan on taking that from someone who's going. So my hope would be, so I probably won't have time. I'll probably get there, try and find someone who's standing outside on their own, and then
what we could probably do, because I think there's probably going to be enough people going in and out that we might be able to get away with it pretty easily. If I go in, show my ticket, and then get away to like give you my ticket, and then you can be me and go back in. Like I went outside for a last minute smoke or whatever before the show.
Not to nitpick, I don't think the Mask of Many Faces allows you to copy other faces. I could be wrong.
Oh, does it?
I'm not sure. I think I can copy other people. Or it might just be someone who doesn't exist. I'm going to look it up, but it'll be a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's an important point. Because if it can copy, then yeah, we could do that. But if it's just like a nondescript other person's face, then that
that's what I always thought. It was just like a nondescript person's face, like in a dream or something. Like a faceless, well, not faceless, but just unremarkable human being, essentially. But by all means, let me know, because I'm afraid I don't know. Whilst you look for that, then let's return to Toff very quickly. Then, so Toff, the minutes have been ticking by. You find yourself in the Mayflower, and
actually, Toff isn't going to actually be in the Mayflower. He's just going to be leaning up. He's going to lean up against the building, waiting for Johnny to show up, kind of just sitting in the shadows. And when Johnny shows up, that's when Toff will kind of step out and kind of meet him before he actually goes in.
Yeah, it isn't long before he shows up, and Johnny, as you may remember, he can. Well, he was your equipment guy, wasn't he? But nowadays he has a bit more of a spring in his step. Like his hair looks different. Like he wears like a new leather jacket, which looks surprisingly a lot like your new leather jacket, Toff. Like he, in every way, is like slowly replacing you.
He's got the Toff starter kit where he's starting to get the chain necklaces around. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, it looks like there's like a brand new version of you essentially as he walks around the corner, and he sort of like falters in his step when he sees you like out front, and he goes, "Oh, hi, Toff.
How's it going, Johnny? Glad you could make it." And he would walk up to him, big smile on his face. He still could he was still kind of woozy from feeding. And he's like, so wasn't sure if you would come or not. Yeah, that was me that texted you. I lost my other phone.
I thought it might be. I recognize your texting pattern.
Yes, exactly. Right. The misspelling, the like mashing up words. Yeah, he's like, he kind of chuckles a bit. He says, yeah, he goes, I just wanted to let you know. I wanted to make it up to you. Felt really bad. It's not your fault. I don't hold any grudges. So he looks at the door of the Mayflower. Maybe someone's going in or someone's going out. He's like, it's kind of busy. I know this other place. Maybe we could go there. And he kind of slips his arm around Johnny's shoulder as he kind of sidles up next to him. And he kind of starts to just kind of like turn him a bit. And actually what he's doing, he's actually using some of his vampire charm to awe Johnny. He said, yeah, there's this guy I've been wanting to, been talking to you about him, about you to him. and just wanted to introduce you. He loves music, and he's got a friend of his loves music too. Really eats that stuff right up.
Oh, okay. Well, before we do, the reason I was wondering if you'd actually been in touch with the others. I've not actually heard from them, and I thought maybe it was some kind of joke, and you had actually been, playing along.
Toph feigns ignorance. He's like, I don't know where they are. I don't hold anything against you, Johnny, but the others, I'm still harboring some resentment against them for that. It might be a while before I'm ready to talk to them, but he kind of shrugs. You guys just coming back from the tour. They're probably just, recuperating.
Look, I've been a huge fan of you for a long time. That's why I wanted to schlep for you. That's why I wanted to do your kit. I've admired your work for so long, and I didn't want to be replacing you, God no. But they asked, and I said yes. So I'm glad that you're okay with it, Toph.
Yeah, kind of Toph steps out in front of him as he starts saying that. Kind of grabs the lapel of this leather coat, and he's kind of just like. When he says about replacing him, his hands kind of tighten up a little bit on the leather coat, and you can kind of hear the leather kind of stretch a bit. And he's like, yeah, it's really not a problem, Johnny. You got some talent, kid. It's eat or get eaten business. Again, I can't hold no grudge against you for taking advantage of the opportunity. But anyways, you ready to sing tonight? It's a solo gig. It's a solo gig. You'll make some money. The others don't even have to know about it. And he would just kind of pat, and he would kind of pat down the lapels, kind of just brush them flat as he kind of just gets back alongside him again, kind of tries to get him moving down the street.
Yeah, and you can see he's wanting to ask you more questions, but you kind of are already going, so he goes along with it and says, "Well, yeah, absolutely." You can tell you have an advantage over this dude in the sense that he has a genuine admiration for you, but is also weirdly your successor in Taking Back Wednesday. It's a strange thing, but anyway, you can absolutely go. Where, may I ask, in what direction are you going?
So Toph, they'd walk a few paces. The Mayflower would kind of drift out of view. He'd say, yeah. He goes, yeah, this my friend Jonah. He's a real music lover. I was talking to him about you the other night and about the tour. He didn't believe me when I said that you could sing, and he kind of grits his teeth on this one. Better than me. And he says, he's got a good friend too. He's a talent agent. It's a guy I've been talking to, and he's totally lying about this last bit. And actually fucking lying all through this whole thing. And he's like, yeah. So Jonah messaged me and said that his friend was there. Just died. Yeah, he said that would just be dying to meet you.
Well, yeah, okay, I guess. That's fine. That sounds good.
Okay, so I say Toph stops for a second, and he kind of just turns on him and says, "Johnny, I thought you would want bigger things. You're selling yourself short."
Right, I'm going to ask for a manipulation roll now. Yeah, it's a little funny. So let's see.
So he's going to use awe, which is charisma and performance.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Is that with a particular skill, or do you just roll it on its own?
Awe uses my potency. I mean, not my potency, my presence. Yeah. My presence. So the difficulty is 7.
Okay.
And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 successes, and I need 1 to awe one person.
Oh, well, then, yeah, like he's just like wide-eyed, and you notice that look behind his eyes. Can you imagine a look he had when he was offered the position, your position? Johnny, while he has like a cool kind of exterior, you see the fiery hot burning ambition behind his eyes, and it blazes as he looks upon you, and he's in awe, as the power suggests.
Yeah. So once Toph sees that, he kind of smiles, kind of gives him like one of those little playful mussing up his hair, and he says, "Yeah, Saracen Records. Not sure if you've heard of it." Yeah, so I think he would just so he's got to meet with oh my gosh, Sid. So he's crunched for time, so they're gonna get to Jonah's.
Yeah, it is going to be a bit of a push for time, but you will just be able to make it. I say, well, you know London well by this point. You can make shortcuts and stuff, and
yeah, the return trips, Toph's not too worried about. He would just run as fast as
of course, yeah, very good point.
But getting there is going to be, and he doesn't want to take a cab, so we'll get there fast.
Sure. So off to Bedlam you go, a phrase that has echoed through the hearts of many terrified people. And whilst you journey, we're going to return to Donica and Siegfried. By this point, you're going to have, if you want to be there on time, you'll have left after sort of maybe setting up a few. Well, no, you tell me, was there anything else that you wanted to do before you leave in regards to the missing persons case, or anything you wanted to prepare? I see that you've put the Mask of a Thousand Faces does mean you can copy people. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually mostly designed to do that. It's harder to make someone up like who doesn't exist, so it's much easier to pick a face you do know and use that one.
That's right. I got that mixed up. I got that the other way around, I think. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so I'll just go. We can look into this thing with Gary Knight another time. But for now, wander to this opera.
Yeah, Sig would have nothing else. He'd want to be there early enough to be able to get seated and everything well before the doors would close and everything.
Yeah, you arrive at the Royal Opera House, which is situated in Covent Garden. It's almost like a performance base of London, really. There's quite a lot that goes on there. Quite a lot of street performers as well that you get to admire as you make your way towards the grand building itself. And on arrival, you notice that there is red carpet. It's a very prestigious event. Lots of black cars pulling up, people wearing their best. This is the opening night to the opera, and you only have the ticket to go on. Now, you may have done some a quick look to see what the actual production is going to look like, or maybe you prefer to keep it as a surprise. But one thing is stands out to you now, Siegfried, as you're looking upon the poster, and you notice that the leading man who is to play the titular role within the opera, Don Juan, which actually goes by another name technically. It's technically Don Giovanni, the name of the opera. The leading man himself goes by the name of Jonas Kaufmann. Now, this decision was made a little while ago, but this is actually one of your touchstones, Siegfried. Something we haven't actually gone too much into the first 6 months of your vampiric existence, at least. Jonas Kaufmann, why don't you explain him a little bit? And now he's obviously his leading man.
Yeah, he's a famous operatic tenor singer. Though lately he's been transitioning more and more down into held in tenor and potentially even baritone roles, which could explain why he's transitioned into Don Giovanni. Even though it's typically a baritone singer's part, as he's gotten older, his voice has gotten darker. That's become more and more suited to his role-playing style than otherwise might be. But it's a singer that Siegfried has long admired for being somebody who can still. There's kind of a prevailing sentiment in a lot of the opera communities that kind of reveres the old guard and kind of looks down upon singers nowadays. It's like they'll never be how the old singers were, Corelli and Pavarotti and all those sorts of people. The singers now can't stand up to them, but there are still some who show promise and are quite skilled, and potentially with more years of experience could even rival some of the old great singers. And Siegfried always looked at Jonas as one of the markers of those who can still make a career doing only opera and potentially even rival, moving up towards legendary status as the years continue to look back.
I wish there was inspiration, because that was such a beautiful explanation of where that touchstone has come from. I like to actually imagine, so we can use that information that you brought to us, Jeff, that perhaps as you're sort of approaching the theatre, you can't help but get excited. You're returning to see opera for the first time in a long time. Like maybe you haven't even gone to any shows like since you've become a vampire. So perhaps you can't help yourself, and you're like excitedly telling Donica all of this information and about how you know this dude. Do you reckon you'll have met him,
Yeah.
Siegfried?
I don't think so. Siegfried, while his career was starting to go off the ground, was still mostly like regional performances. He wasn't quite on like the world international scale of performers in the way that somebody like him would be. So perhaps he's like gone to like a master class or a an interview thing that he's been at, but I don't think he would personally have met him outside of perhaps like the tiniest introduction. Yeah, I think that's a good point. That in this instance, Siegfried actually forgets just for a couple minutes that he's a vampire. Like it's such a reminder of what his life used to be like. That as he's talking here with Donica, he doesn't feel like a creature of the night going to visit some scheme. Like it feels like he's a person watching something that he's passionate about, and it'll like completely take him back on the way.
And Donica, on your approach to the opera, then, is there anything that you're doing, anything that you're thinking about or preparing to do?
He's thinking that like he can see how excited Siegfried is, and that he's not focused on the task, and that's dangerous. And if I was going to try and fuck with Siegfried, I would invite him to a fancy opera so that he's like thinking about that and not about the knife in the back. And so like he's like listening and nodding and like, oh yeah, baritone, yeah, yeah. And he's just like doing the polite sort of, I'm listening to your interest, but I have no interest in it sort of thing. But mostly he's keeping an eye out, and he's really trying to look and see if anyone is looking at them,
Yeah, and it is a very interesting point, and definitely an intelligent point to consider, because within the 6 months, when we left you guys on the hiatus, I like to imagine that all of you would have done some. You would have learned a bit more about all of the clans, whether that be finding, potential weaknesses or potential, cycles of habit. And you're absolutely right. To catch a Toreador weak would be to catch them in the face of something that they find most beautiful in the world. Essentially, Siegfried is like Superman walking into a room of kryptonite. So maybe you're aware of that. I like to think you probably are aware to some extent that there is an element of danger for you here, Siegfried.
But it's like that sort of danger when somebody tells you to like be careful on your hiking trip to the Grand Canyon if you're like a nature lover, where it's like, well, yeah, obviously I'm not going to fall off the ledge. I'm going to, watch my step, but look at this amazing place. How could I not hike down it? Just basically that equivalent of like, yeah, it's risky, but come on, like nothing's going to happen. I'll be careful.
Okay, so then all that remains to do then, and yeah, you'll be looking around, Donica, to see if there's anyone sort of looking at you, but you don't really mark anyone. without any further checks, I will add, because we need to remember to roll some dice occasionally. But if there's anything else you'd like to do, I'd also like you to make the roll of the 1,000 faces then to see. I'm sure you'll manage it.
Yeah, I made it a while ago and I got 4.
Oh, you did? Perfect.
Yeah. So 4 allows me to match a face of my choice, and it's actually complete transformation, including gestures, mannerisms, appearance, and voice. So I really don't want to do that until he's in, because if there's just 2 identical people walking, it might be weird. So I think for now I just Donica with like probably like a hat on and like sticking to the quiet bits and the shadowy bits, and like that sort of thing that happens a lot where like just if someone looks in our direction, like a car goes by, and if they're looking at me and they're like, what's it? And then there's like a vroom, and then I'm gone, or like a light flickers or whatever. Just these weird sort of coincidences that make it very hard to like look at a Nosferatu out in the daylight or the nightlight.
And I know you both know know exactly what I mean when I describe this, but you both get that feeling when you walk into the atrium of this place. There is that buzz of an audience waiting to go into the auditorium, that tangible feeling in the air that you know that you're about to all witness one shared moment upon the stage. And Siegfried, then in that case, if you want to start making your way in as people are being seated, and then I'll happily allow you both just to describe with the successful check how you managed to get inside, and both of you can sort of collaborate on how you do that.
Yeah, so I think Siegfried will do one of those like classic, and the ticket checker probably hates him for it because it's always annoying. Where he like goes up, shows him the ticket, like walks by, and is like, oh shoot, I forgot something, and then like walks like right back out. And then like he'll do that, and then like hand off the ticket, basically to Donica, like right around where they're kind of hovering, so that he can like walk by, and the guy will have already checked his ticket, and he'll just kind of like wave to him and be like, "Yep, it's me again. You just saw me 2 seconds ago." And then he'll walk over to go find where the box is. And then Donica will, after a couple moments, be able to kind of repeat that, but probably far enough apart, and in the crowd where it'll just be like another person with another ticket.
Yeah, I'll try and enter like with a group. If there's a couple people walking by, I'll wait until he's busy with someone and then just like walk by with the ticket and be like, oh, me again, and try and hop in that way.
Absolutely. So Siegfried, you were helpfully shown to the correct box by the markings upon the walls, and you are led to the premier box, as it were. It is the best seat in the house by far. It's box 5. And it is upon the dress circle level, and as you sort of arrive, there is this usher who politely opens the curtains, and within this box that there are 2 chairs, and they sort of at the perfect level. You're looking out and you see this beautiful set that is lush and full of colors and decoration. You're very pleased to see that this is a traditional interpretation of Mozart's epic, and it's not one of these modern things, where they like wear modern, what I mean. This is the full shebang, and you can hear sort of the orchestra like beginning to tune and prepare in the pit below. But there's no one else. There's no one else in the box. It's just your seat and an empty chair.
Yeah, he'll have this expectation when he opens the door to like see like the dramatic reveal of like, here's the person who's called you. Like it would just, this whole thing is like felt so much like a movie that he like expected it to just like play out that way. That like there'll be the mysterious person waiting for him when he enters, but there's not, and that'll kind of like confuse him for a bit. But then just seeing empty, at this point, I think he's too like just entranced in the experience that like that thought of like, it's weird that the other person isn't here yet, and that I expected it. But then like immediately it's just like the stage light will catch his eye, and like the sound of the orchestra tuning will kind of build that subconscious anticipation in him, and it'll just like completely lose the idea that he's here to meet a person and not to watch a show. And we'll get caught in the experience.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. And one last thing before the curtain rises, Donica. You have many abilities to ensure that you can be completely unseen, so you can pick wherever you're gonna go and sit, or whatever. You could even go on stage. You could sit on the lighting rig if you so please.
I think what I'll do is I'll go to that same box, and I'll just like press myself into one of the corners, and like hide in the dark there. Probably to the point where like Siegfried like will see the curtain blow, but like not see a person. But yeah, and just like press myself there, and like I'm not that interested. Like Tonica thinks opera's a bit poncy. It's a bit like everyone gets dressed up and it's all a bit fancy and like like I don't think that, but Tonica thinks that. So he'll like kind of have his arms folded and like watch this thing. But really, he's just here as security, I guess. To make sure no one like devours Siegfried.
And then that fateful moment happens when there is almost like an automatic collective hushing across the audience. It moves across the great, beautiful Gothic auditorium like a wave. The London Opera House falls silent as the lights darken. And just as the lights darken, I would like both Siegfried and Donica to make an awareness roll, which is the supernatural one. I think. Yes. So that would be awareness, please. And
I need to real quick before I do that check the wording on something.
Sure. Awareness and perception.
Yeah, okay. Just two.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and self give in to my clan weakness. So when a Toreador experiences something truly remarkable, something artistic or beautiful in some way, that they become just enthralled by it, unless they make a self control. But I wouldn't even know to make that right now.
Absolutely.
So I'm just going to say at this stage that Siegfried is just like hypnotized. Like the fixation of the performance is at this stage, like I think enhanced by the fact that it's been so long that he hasn't been to one. Now that he's like actually a Toreador, there's some like kind of blood magnetism to this sort of event. So I'm just going to say that I am out of making checks for now.
That's incredible. I love that you've embraced the clown weakness. That's great. And I will explain to you both what you witness right now. And that is literally the last second as the light goes down. And even though you have, your vampiric vision that you can see in the dark, there is the shift in the light, as it were. As that moment is happening, you feel almost like both of you feel like just the softest breath of air, as if someone had opened a window next to you for a second. And then you realize that there is someone sat next to you in the chair, as if something moved into the box incredibly fast and incredibly gracefully and sat at the exact second the lights come down. And Siegfried, Donica, as you look over, you're able to behold who this figure is sat next to you. It is Zia, the Toreador and Archon of the Camarilla. And that is where we're going to take a short break, where we're going to, just grab yourself a drink, and we'll be back in 5. For those of you watching now, thanks for being here live. And for those watching after the fact, thanks for watching too. See you in a bit. I have returned. Loving the use of the clown weakness there, Jeff. I just love that. I was like, yes, he's just letting it happen, letting the music and the atmosphere soar over you. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just makes too much sense. Like after all this time, to like feel so deprived of something so essential to you, and then to like have it back, but like have it also like heightened by this supernatural connection to people who kind of lose themselves to that obsession. There's just no way that there'd be any sort thing. Like even if he was genuinely trying to be careful, that there's just no way that he could let it slip for that long.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I love about them in a way, is that they, it's that very connection of the thing that they love is the thing that makes them vulnerable in a sense, and that keeps them close to that humanity that they, well, sadly lost. But yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at it. It even says that like while you're in rapture, that even if you start getting attacked, like you can't defend yourself. Like you're literally just so lost in it
It's
that
nuts. It's so nuts.
so this person quite literally could just like stab me right now, and I would die. Which is great.
Well, yeah.
I was not expecting it to be her. There were a couple options that were going through my mind of who it was, but
Yeah.
I forgot about her.
Yes, well, that's one of her probably primary tactics, is that maybe people don't think that she's who will be the first one to turn up, but yeah, she's a funny one. I love that meanwhile, like, we just have this backstory, or rather a B plot, sorry, of Toph leading this poor bastard,
setting up his replacement to get eaten by a tiger.
Yeah,
I'm guessing that's the plan.
Wow, I just love how you guys are just jumping to conclusions here.
That's true. That's true. But the Saracen label, the Saracen Industries, or whatever it was. Oh dear.
Saracen Productions.
That was it. Saracen Productions. If Toph ever starts a label, that'll be the name of it, and it'll have a picture of a tiger.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yes. That is canon. That will happen.
Canon. We'll do it. We'll work on it. Amazing. And we have a Donica joining us as well. Fantastic.
Hello.
Well, speak of the devil, then. Let us return back to this night in London with Toph. The journey has been a strange one, as you are, I'm assuming, keep making conversation and like keeping the atmosphere non-threatening. But after a while, after a good run, basically across one side of London to the next, well, from the centre to the northern areas, you arrive at the gates of Bedlam itself, and it looks as strange and dilapidated and infamous as it looked the last time. To briefly remind those who may have forgotten, because this is the world of darkness, some things never happened within this world's history. Now, in the modern real world of London, Bedlam is actually a site of a very, very good mental health institute. But that never happened in the world of darkness. It remained the terrifying place where you send mad people in this world, which is now obviously overseen by the primogen of the Malkavians himself, Jonah. And yeah, you're at the gates. What would you like to do?
I think Toph would see maybe like a worried look on Johnny's face, and he would look back towards Bedlam and say, "Oh yeah, I forgot a couple things you need to know. Jonah's a bit eccentric. He's one of the doctors here. So just follow my lead, and whatever you do, just don't look him in the eyes. Okay?"
Okay. Is this some kind of underground thing? Like some kind of rave. Like he's looking at, and like to be fair to him, like perhaps a rave or something could happen in like a rundown place like this.
I imagine he's been hanging with Toph and his band for quite a while as their equipment guy. They've been to probably several raves, and what they probably didn't realize that they were surrounded by a lot of vampires at the time. And Toph probably did this little thing like, all right, listen, motherfuckers, these guys are my band. They're not for feeding. All right, be cool. Kind of one of those sorts of conversations. So he would he'd say, trust me, Johnny, you are going to have the night of your life. And he would kind of hear that as he pushes open. Oh wait, does it have one of those buzzers at the gate? Bzz, 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 or does he have to push the gate open?
You can just open the gate there, doesn't it?
Yeah. So there's that long kind of squealing sound of the metal gate opening, and he starts walking in, expecting that Johnny's going to follow him.
Yeah, and so he seems fairly at ease and that. Well, not at ease, but curious. He's obviously been to rundown places like this before then with you, which is perfect cover in a way. But yeah, he's sort of looking at the towers of this place and like the fact that then there don't appear to be any lights coming from any of the windows, and like some of them are smashed and broken. And you're able to make your way up the great driveway. And then climb the steps to the front door, on which there is a large gargoyle knocker.
Yeah, so there would be that boom, 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 that hollow sound as Toph just kind of raps solidly on this gargoyle knocker. He turns and gives an easy smile to Johnny, kind of tapping his right foot, his Doc Martin, kind of making that thud, 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 thud.
Yeah, there is a long pause, and it almost seems like the door isn't going to be answered.
I was going to say, Toph is the most patient guy, so he would kind of do that for after about 20 or 30 seconds. He's like literally like, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. Eventually, the door like rips open, and you see a familiar face before you. You see Jonah, who opens the door just enough to poke his head through, and immediately, like a cloud of smoke is like billowing out from like behind him as he looks wild-eyed out of the door. Like you can see he's got like soot marks on his face, and he goes, "Oh, it's you."
Wait, I was muted. Yeah. Just brought a friend, and he kind of grabs Johnny, who's kind of like off camera, pulls him in, and he says, brought my good buddy Johnny here. Telling him how you like music, and he wants to meet Saracen of Saracen Productions. And Toph gives him one of those winks, like a really long, exaggerated winks.
Sorry, that got me.
And then he would say,
dear.
Saracen's here, right? Is he seeing anybody tonight?
And you see like a gradual sort of realization come across Jonah's face, and he goes, "Really? Really? This young man would like to actually meet Saracen?"
He would. Wouldn't you, Johnny?
Well, I thought you said Saracen was a company. He says, like looking back and forth. "Nice to meet you, by the way. I'm Johnny." And he like extends a hand towards Jonah, who sort of almost like withdraws with disgust from the hand, just like, and he just looks like affronted and just stares at you.
Toph is going to grab him quickly and pull him in close and whisper like a very forced whisper in Johnny's ear. I said, I told you, he's a bit eclectic. Careful. And he kind of lets him back go, and he goes, "Forgive him, Jonah. He's not used to meeting someone of your caliber." And he said, and then he would look at Johnny and say, "Johnny, is it a crime to name a company after yourself?"
"Well, no, I guess not. Is everything okay?" He says, looking over Jonah's shoulder, like the smoke just pouring out from behind him, and Jonah just like is just locked eyes on him, and doesn't answer.
I think it would be a very bad Pig Latin moment where Toph is like ixnay on the. Oh my god, he can't even do Pig Latin, but he's heard people do
Yeah,
it
of
before.
course, neither can I.
And he's like, eyes A.
Amazing, yeah. So eventually Jonah sort of like just throws open the door and just sort of like takes a step to the side, allowing both of you to pass inside. And he says, if you would like to accompany me.
Would love it. And he would kind of like throw his arm back around Johnny and guide him in through the door.
To the what they were, I gave it a name. Hang on, it was the menagerie. To the menagerie, he says, and he sort of like walks briskly through the halls of Bedlam. You once again hear the cacophonous sounds of 100 voices, sort of like groaning and shrieking and laughing with an affliction that racks them to the core. As you're walking through the ground floor, you are alarmed, and I won't say it's going to be a risk of frenzy, but you're very, very, very concerned that one of the rooms of this place appears to be on fire completely. But Jonah walks past as if he isn't even aware of such a thing, and leads you through the back to the very back of the building and out to where the atrium is, which is on the far side of the great grounds. But as you're walking past, there is something that takes your notice, something that you remember from quite a long time ago when you were here before. You pass by this red door, which you might remember. I know it was a little while ago since we were here, but there was this red door at the bottom of a flight of steps next to the back door. And Jonah sort of looks at it with like a disdain and almost a fear as you walk by. And it looks like he almost tries to shrug it off as he opens the back door to the grounds. This is the way, he says with a smile.
Anyone else probably would be curious about the red door. Toph isn't.
No,
he's got the blind. He's got focus.
Yeah, for sure. And it isn't long before you reach the atrium, this great glass structure that houses many creatures.
We probably would hear several of them before we even get there, like monkeys and parrots. And
there's all sorts of
crazy stuff. So as they're kind of walking across the untended grounds, I think it's like dead bushes and shrub and whatnot. I think Toph would reach into his pocket and he'd be like a rattle as he pulls out like a sweet and pops it in his mouth. It tastes foul, almost like ash in his mouth, but he sells it and he kind of offers it over to Johnny, looking casual, just to kind of make it as normal. Like, hey, this is kind of weird, but this is normal. Come on, it's all good. And he offers him one of the sweets.
Yeah, he uneasily takes one, and more he's becoming a bit sort of shaken by this, but the fact that your awe was so strong, there isn't really much like he can do to like penetrate that.
He could actually use his willpower to.
He's going to try, because this is like getting really weird, and he's like
so he would need 4 successes to overcome it, but he can keep trying.
Okay.
Oh, wait, actually, I think what it is, Jeff, correct me, I think he can actually expend willpower to gain his senses for a moment, I believe, or something like that. I think that's how it works.
As an ordinary human being, it's not going to be...
Yeah, I was going to say, he would have to have willpower points to spend, so that would just depend on, I guess, what his courage stat starts as.
Yeah.
And if he would...
What I will say then, until it becomes prudent where like he might realize that he's in like a state of real risk, that's when I'll say that's when it might break, and he'll be like, if he sees he's about to be fucking killed.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Rob, because actually awe cannot allow someone to willingly put themselves at risk. So the minute he suspects that his safety is threatened, that awe effect would fade. So
well,
long
then
as
in
he
that
feels
case, you know,
threatened.
it's starting to like not quite just now, but like for real, like he's getting a bit freaked out. He doesn't know what's going
Hence
on.
the sweet. He hands him the sweet. He goes, you look a little nervous, Johnny. I was nervous the first time I met Jonah and Saracen too, but I'm here, man. We're good. You'll be fine.
And he's sort of just like, okay, gives like a nod. And you're basically at the doors of the atrium, and Jonah just turns around and looks at you and says, "Is this what you want?" And he just sort of smiles at you.
Toph doesn't say anything. He just nods, and then he looks at Johnny. You want to do this, Johnny? You know, I'm not going to force you. I mean, you can turn around right now, but I think this is a great opportunity.
What exactly is in there? It looks like a, and he looks. I don't know. Looks like a zoo.
I think Toph shrugs. It says, it sort of is. Jonah keeps a few animals. He kind of laughs a little bit. He says he sort of fancies himself a rescuer of exotic animals.
Right, he says, like staring at the door, and he takes a step back.
I think Toph goes, Johnny, well, I'm a man of my word. If you don't want to go in there, you don't have to.
And he says, "Is that like a minute? Are you trying to manipulate him? Like, are you, you scared
Yes,
or something?"
Totally is trying to manipulate.
Give me a roll of let's see. Is it subterfuge?
It would be manipulation, and let me see what would be the best one. Probably subterfuge.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure subterfuge is actually spoken in this.
Otherwise, it could be like empathy, or because empathy is like a lot of the interpersonal.
Yeah, could be empathy too.
I'll say, yeah. For the meantime, let's go with that. Why not?
Yeah. No.
No. Okay. Well, he isn't really having much of it, and it's almost like you're halfway through your explanation when Jonah just puts a hand on his shoulder and says, "Look at me." And Johnny looks into Jonah's eyes for a moment, and you watch as his pupils dilate radically. You're able to look back from him to Jonah and see that Jonah, for one of the first times in your life, is seemingly concentrating incredibly hard on just looking into this man's eyes. And all of a sudden, a giant drooling grin begins to spread across Johnny's face as he succumbs to dementation.
I think Toph would just shake his head. Told you not to look in his eyes, Johnny.
You did. And with that, Jonah just opens the door and Johnny just wanders inside.
So how to Saracen for me, Johnny?
And you watch as Johnny sort of disappears into the many leaves and branches that sort of fill the center of this thing, of the menagerie. And then you see all of a sudden a movement of a large creature move its way quickly through the undergrowth, and then there is a sudden cry out, and then nothing. The glimpse that you saw was definitely of a tiger, but it moved with a speed even unnatural to a creature such as it, even faster than a normal tiger. So do with that information as you will. And Jonah just sort of is grinning wildly at you. And it's at this point, because you have just planned essentially a murder, we're gonna ask you to make a check, Lionel. But what we're gonna do is, because I'm gonna need to thank you very much for posting that, by the way, Jeff, the actual rules. It's helpful to know the rules of this game. Whilst we have a look at that and see what we've got to roll for that, we're gonna move back to the opera house. The feeling is unimaginable. It's the sweetest thing. It's like nectar to your ears, Siegfried, as the opera plays out. Every individual on stage is colorfully costumed, and the leading man, Jonas, he's doing incredibly well. You're absolutely right in saying that there were a number of sort of elitist members within the operatic community that think, oh, maybe he's not up to the role. Maybe he's not right for it. He's not baritone. But so far, he is doing incredibly well. And it is a beautiful thing to behold. Donica, in the meantime, you're not quite so awe-inspired by this. It sounds great. You know, you know that it's good music, but it's just not your thing. And that enables you to watch clearly, not the show, but indeed Zia, the Archon who sits next to Siegfried. And while you're aware of this, Siegfried, for some reason you seem to be unable to pull yourself from the wondrous sights and sounds that lay upon your senses. Donica, you're watching, and Zia doesn't appear to be making any move whatsoever. She is almost as transfixed as he, staring at the dancers that whirl about the stage in time with the highs and lows of one of Mozart's most famous works. What's going through your mind, first of all, Donica, as this happens, and what do you want to do?
He can appreciate opera the same way that most people do, which is like, I know that it's impressive, but I don't really know why. And I guess he gets to see all these like very, very rich people with like tiny binoculars, and they're all fanning themselves, and he's just like, I just don't get it, just doesn't understand it. And so he's spending a lot of time looking at Zia, who's like quite a powerful vampire, and I think we know that. But now is like less concerned that she's going to kill Siegfried, because if she was going to, she wouldn't bother with all this. She would just like kill him in the night somewhere quietly. So he's not super invested in the actual opera itself. He'll be watching her and watching Siegfried and see that they're both, I guess, just like glued to this thing, like more so even than any of the humans in the room are, and figures it must be some sort of magic. His assumption would be that the guy singing is magic, but it's not affecting him because he's a Nosferatu and they like ugly things, and this is like too beautiful for him to like properly understand. Maybe to him it seems very screechy and very loud, and he doesn't really get it. But yeah, he'd be watching her more carefully.
And I think as your eyes are scanning the area, your gaze rests for a second on one of the gargoyles carved into the proscenium arch of this thing, and you sort of like give a nod. That's sort of like that's where you are. That's how you're represented in the art of this beautiful place. Siegfried, what's it like?
It's almost indescribable. This like sensation of like connecting with something that you love that you haven't gotten the chance to connect with in a long time. This like it makes it feel almost like a new experience despite how familiar it is, which is kind of like the best of both worlds. It simultaneously feels like new and enchanting, but also known and familiar all at the same time. And he can't help but fall into like he's trying like not to analyze it, and it's easier than he thought it would be to like turn off that critical part in his brain of like, oh well, if I was going to do this role or stage this scene, like I might want to try to emphasize these points, but instead it's just kind of like letting it all kind of wash over him of just like, wow, it's impressive that a person it's so rare that a singer can have like power and darkness and range all within their voice while also being a good actor. Usually you have to like give up one part of the triangle to get the other two. But somehow he manages to have all of that connected. And the staging is good. They're not trying to do anything too new or fancy like some opera companies like to do. They feel like they have to like modernize it for the new kids, but they're just doing it straight how it should be, as it was written. And it's just like trying to he doesn't even have to try to turn that part of him off. The critical artist part, it just kind of, for the first time in a long time, he can just shut off every critical part of his brain, every logical, cautious, vampiric part of his being that's kind of become the new normal for him now. It's all gone. He's just a person who loves singing, watching a great show, and that's all that his brain has the capacity for in this moment.
Absolutely. And it's is at this point it's probably worth mentioning that time seems to pass differently for both Donica and Siegfried at this point. Siegfried, the first act of this production seems to be like a whirlwind, and every note, every prolonged held, note from all of the singers is just it's just perfect to you, and you feel happy. You actually feel happy. Donica and Lloyd, I know I'm talking to you here. Like, we've all been in shows where you're like, this isn't for me. This is one of these occasions. And every second seems to drag with like endless monotony. But you're able to keep a close eye, and Zia appears to be sort of transfixed. But the lights go up, and a rapturous applause goes up as the first act of this opera comes to a close. And there is a short moment of pause before people start getting out of their seats to desperately queue for the toilets and go get ice cream, that kind of thing. Actually, I don't think they'd have ice cream in the opera, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's at this moment that it's almost like just for a little while the spell seems to break, and you're back to reality. And Siegfried, as you are able to wrench your gaze from the stage, as if you're just staring at it, wishing it for it to carry on, you're noticing that Zia is now just looking directly at you with a smile across her lips. You may remember I'll just describe to you what she looks like, because it's been a while. She's a very, very beautiful toreador. Long dark hair, which she usually has tied up, but because she's in this sort of formal situation, she wears just a black dress, black heels. She looks the part, and she's just watching you, smiling.
Yeah, Siegfried will just kind of like shake his head with a grin on his face. And like he'll just like say, like, completely forgetting the nature of like who this person is, and like the perhaps bigger picture to what all this is for. I'll just be like, it's remarkable. It's just world-class singers on a world-class stage. It's amazing. And then like as the high kind of continues to fade of the show, he'll kind of realize kind of the presence will kind of come back to him of like where he is and who with, and like turn and see her looking at him. And there's going to be like that sudden moment of realization of like, oh, I'm not just here to enjoy a show. This person clearly has some agenda for having brought me here. And the sort of logical scheming part of his vampire brain will slowly kind of start to turn the wheels a bit again, and let's kind of like make eye contact, but he won't say anything more. He'll just wait.
She eventually speaks, and the smile that was upon her face fades. You've never seen Zia smile before. She looks stern all the time and terrifying. She's a terrifying person. And as you sort of like lock gazes for a moment, she says, I thought it would be an appropriate meeting place. As I understand it, you have a taste for such things. And she gestures to the stage.
How could you not? He'll say, as if like liking opera is just something that everybody can and should do. Like it won't even occur to him in this moment that it's possible to not like love what just happened.
It's the dancing that I love. It is my vocation. And it has been ever since I've been on this earth, embraced or not. And it is nice. It is nice to remind ourselves of the beauty that even the kind can embrace. Kind meaning humanity. I'm glad you came. I am aware that I did not send a note. I was hopeful that curiosity would bring you here. But curiosity is something that our kind relish more than most, I would say, particularly when it comes to the arts. But we don't have much time, and I do not wish to speak whilst the production is at play.
Of course.
You don't need any refreshments, she points over her shoulder.
Siegfried let out a chuckle. So I'm guessing you didn't bring me here out of the kindness of your heart.
Well, perhaps not, but this is somewhat a mark of respect and a mark of peace. I do not wish for you to feel pressured by this situation. I thought this would be the most comfortable setting, in fact. It's interesting to consider the story of Don Giovanni, a iconic character. You know, he's young and he's arrogant and, well, promiscuous, and he outrages essentially everyone in this cast and everyone in the story. Until, of course, our hero, our titular hero, comes across something that he cannot beat or kill or dodge or outwit. He is a character that fails to repent for his wicked ways. And because of this, he is dragged to hell by forces unknown, demons in the darkness. He is a liar, Siegfried. Don Giovanni is a liar. To everyone, but most of all to himself. And you can't really blame him, can you? We all lie to ourselves occasionally. Wouldn't you agree?
That's why these stories work so well, and not because they're distant, but because they're close. In a way, he is us, and we're him. Not quite to that extreme, or at least for most of us, hopefully. But delusion is part of life.
Indeed. Then take this moment to truly, when she looks at you, embrace the fact that this trait is found in most of our kind, but also mostly and strongly within yourself, Siegfried. Our kind, we, the Toreador, claim that we still feel our link to humanity, and we do this by indulging in arts, and we do this by indulging in the senses. This makes the blood richer and the art more exquisite. But remember, this is a lie. The truth is, the Toreador, we hide behind our masks, for we don't really have any link to humanity at all. No, we merely emulate it and watch on enviously as those people, these mortal, these kind, they absorb this as if it will last forever. But of course, we all know it will not. You could argue that the Bruja are the true bridge between humanity and vampires, not us. So, Siegfried, do you believe it is time that you stop lying to yourself?
It's the trouble about lying to yourself. It's hard to tell who is doing the deception, who is living the truth sometimes.
Indeed. Well, Siegfried, I'm here to remind you that you are, in fact, a toreador. And while your welcome to the society here in London hasn't exactly been the warmest one, I am inclined to extend this olive branch to you on a one-time only basis. And I would like you to listen very carefully. As I'm sure you are now aware, there is to be a meeting that will occur tomorrow night, where all primogens of our kind within the Camarilla will be meeting. And they will all be choosing a witness, an accomplice to stand by to these terms. You will be required to attend. You will be joining Lala de Winter, the primogen of our kind.
Interesting. Yes, I've met her once before. I don't think I need to tell you when. So that's what this is about then. You bring me to a meeting in order to bring me to another.
I thought that you would be pleased that you would be treated to such a treat. Treated to such a treat, whatever. You know what I mean.
And I am, I must say, that my caution in speech here does not represent the gratitude that I have for you bringing me here, and I say that with all truth and genuineness. That this has been a beauty beyond compare to anything that I've experienced before or after my embrace.
I understand. It is indeed actually was Lala's idea to have you brought here. And that is something that I will cover with you shortly. I'm an Archon. Do you know what that means? Do you know what role I perform within the Camarilla?
I can't say that I've been privy to too many specifics so far.
I
You
answer
seem to lurk
to...
around the powerful people, though, and they seem to pay attention to you and respect you in some way. So clearly you've got something going for you.
They respect me because I am a representation of the Justicars, a body that works tirelessly to ensure that there is continuity maintained within the Camarilla, thus meaning there is continuity maintained within the Masquerade. My job is to stand and look to see if such a masquerade is indeed being effective, and I am sorry to say that over these past nights, certain gaps are beginning to form within the armor of our kind here. There has been a great tension, I'm sure you will have noticed. And that tension has spawned directly from the matter of fact that the prince that was promised to us all to be sleeping deep beneath Ventu Towers is now actually not there. This has left our kind open. This has left the Camarilla exposed. And that is what this meeting is for. This meeting is to ensure that our kind will work together. All clans will work together. A coterie will be formed to represent each of the clans. And you will be taking the place of the Toreador in this matter. Now, I do not wish for you to get too egotistical about it. I can assure you that there are many other vampires that exceed your youthful talents. So I'm not going to bullshit you. You're going to be part of this as you were a first-hand witness of the prince not being in that tomb. Do I make myself clear?
Siegfried's eyes will kind of wander back to the stage for just a moment, the empty stage, and kind of think for a second. So the prince is gone. Everyone thinks that that's their shot to take power, to take control, both vampires, non-vampires alike. But we need to make sure that doesn't happen, or else we're all fucked. Is that the sense of it?
It is to show that all clans of the Camarilla are united. We've even reached out to the Gangrel, who have not been amongst our numbers since the 1990s. No word has come from them yet. But in time, I'm sure they can be persuaded. Everyone can be persuaded.
Well, then I suppose I should be grateful for being called in last time to witness so graciously the absence of our prince. For now, it's led to this, and you may say, and he'll kind of put his hands up like a "I'm not doing anything here" kind of motion. It's not about power or ego, but I'm sure you'll agree that everything's an opportunity. It seems I've been given a great one. I'll be there.
She smiles, and it's at this point that there is that collective hush that sort of runs across the audience. The interval is about to finish, and she says, "And of course, prepare for the fact that all kine will be made aware of this, and each witness will be asked in time. Though, as I can see, Faye will be saved a job." And she turns to look at the stage without even looking at you, Donica, as the show begins once again, and that wave of euphoria covers you once again, Siegfried. Within this time, Donica, like if there's anything you would have liked to have done, whilst the show starts again, essentially.
He's just going to leave. Like he's confident now that like no one's going to kill Siegfried, and like that he's just going to watch the rest of this incredibly tedious shrieking, and so he's just going to leave and get some actual work done.
Okay, well, in that case, why don't you? Is there anything that you know you want to do right now, or do you want to be given some time to think about it?
He would go and investigate, like in the back of the alleyway and stuff, where your man went missing.
Okay.
Yeah, look into that.
Sure. So in that case, you're going to head over there, which will lead us nicely over to Toph. Now, I can see you've all very kindly, Jeff, actually, you've kindly posted what we're going to need to do to make this check, because to let those watching know, you need to make certain checks to see if your conscience can bear the fact that you've planned and murdered someone, which Toph just has. So what is the consensus here? We need to roll a conscience roll. Is that right?
So what I could figure out is that you roll conscience, so the number of dice that you have for conscience, and then you have to get at least one success. The difficulty is 8.
Difficulty 8, one success.
And if you get one success, you succeed, but if you don't get any, you fail.
Yeah.
So I guess the quick question before that. So what is, I guess, succeeding means that he'll feel bad and stay at his humanity, or that he'll drop humanity and not feel bad? Probably the stay one, right?
So based on what I had read, if there's some sort of sense of remorse or whatnot, that could be a saving grace for a vampire to hold on to that humanity. But if they're rather apathetic and whatnot, then so there's another mechanic too that Rob can do, and that's called atrocity die. And Rob, the storyteller, can actually assign anywhere from 1 to 3 atrocity die to Toph for the act that he did, based on how he feels it scales. And you accumulate those, and when you get 10 of them, you get a permanent one. And you can only have 10, and then it resets. And at the same time, your humanity is slowly ticking down. So
okay.
I would say I didn't sense an iota of remorse from Toph throughout this whole thing so far.
No, I didn't even.
Yeah. It seems pretty straightforward, yeah. That's a pretty huge gap.
I feel ganged up on. I feel ganged up on.
You're just like
Planned murder.
murdering.
Planned murder is set at like a level 3 humanity, and Toph is at 7. So that's a pretty huge gap in behavior too.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
It's a gap of 4. So
Everyone we've killed thus far has been like in combat or in defense. This is
Yes.
very like serial killer,
Premeditated.
murder, you know.
What?
He's
Just
actually
because
just
because
settled a tiger.
because Toph wanted him to meet Saracen? I mean, come on. Saracen's a nice kitty. So I did pass my conscience check.
Okay.
However, I think it still seems to me like there should be a loss of humanity there. I don't know if that's within the rules or not.
Well, what I'll say then, so those atrocity die, then I can just take that and apply that to a future incident, or like how am I using these?
I think
I
it's
don't
like
understand that.
you give him one, and then every time
Yeah.
he gets one until he gets 10.
I have to keep counting them up to 10, and then I permanently lose humanity.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
It's like every vampire's slow degradation into the beast.
It's the beast, yeah.
You know, that loss of connection to humanity. You know, it's
Right.
just like people around us are just cattle or just insects.
Well, I guess I'm reading the thing here, and it looks like, so it says if the vampire accidentally or purposely commits the act lower, which it is, must roll conscious to see whether they accept the act and lose humanity, or feel bad and keep your current level. So I think you kind of have to decide if the only way to keep your humanity is to make Toph feel bad about it. So I think you have to make a choice there with succeeding on the conscious die if you're going to accept that result or not. Or if you're going to say, just take the loss and say that he loses humanity because he's not.
Yeah, so I think that's what it is. I think that's how the mechanic is working, is the conscience kicks in, and because he succeeded, he's actually like, oh shit, I just freaking literally killed this dude. And not only did I kill this dude to like survive, which sometimes has to happen. So I think there's probably this moment as he's turning away, and there's kind of that crunching sound of Saracen. That Toph is like, kind of just looks like not in anything in particular, but he definitely can't look at the menagerie anymore. He bye Johnny. And I'm gonna take the hit on humanity.
That was sinister as fuck, and I loved it.
And there's a sound of a crack and a snap as the burner phone he has, he snaps it in half and tosses it off. And then he's gonna jet to meet up with Sid.
Yeah, as you snap the phone, like Jonah is just looking at you knowingly, and he says, "I'd like to tell you a little story, Toph, before you go."
Yeah, you return. He's definitely not going to try to leave if Jonah wants to talk to him.
Once upon a time, I was a Primogen in a different city. Did you know that? Maybe not.
Shakes his head.
Big Apple. The Big Apple, New York, across this mighty ocean, a city that sings with the sound of madness. It was a home to me for the time. And I decided that I was going to use my wondrous skills and abilities to fight crime. And indeed, I fought crime wherever I saw it. Vagrancy is a crime. You know what I used to do?
Toph would shake his head, maybe afraid of what the answer is going to be.
I used to invite those poor people without a home, without a roof, without a buck to their name. And I would introduce them to the forces of gravity. And the trick, my dear friend, is to ensure that they really deserve it. And then you don't feel bad at all.
He would, I would never have thought that Toph would agree with Jonah but he looks over towards the menagerie and then back to Jonah, and he says, "He certainly deserved it."
Well, I won't ask, and I'm sure then you won't tell.
Yep. Shrugs. Well, see you around.
Not if I see you first.
There'd be probably that. Yeah. And he's gonna get out of there as quickly as he can. Of all the vampire clans, this guy creeps him out the most.
Of course. With the whip of celerity, you're able to bust it over across the city, and we'll return to you shortly after some ominous music plays. Donica, you are making your way through the streets, and you arrive before the club in Soho, Cirque du Soir, and you are looking into the alleyway at this point.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to. It's been a long time since this guy went missing, right? It's been weeks or months, even, is it?
6 months. It happened the night that you took the club.
Right. So any sort of actual trail is going to be long dead, I think. But I'm going to still try and follow as best I can, whether like it's by literally like sniffing the air or whatever sort of creepoid like techniques I have as a creature of the night. Try and follow where he might have gone and just like look around, I guess, in the alleyway and for like anywhere that like I could find a sign, or even rats that I could talk to and ask if they seen anything, or like magpies, or like an alley cat that lives here or something, you know, like find some sort of sign.
Absolutely, and I really think that works because, the initial pitch for Donica as a character was that he's going to be sort of like this detective, like he has a really, really good mind for investigation, which is the role that I'll be asking you to make. Investigation and
Intelligence, perception.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, you're going to be looking, aren't you? So in that case, I'll say perception.
Okay, if that doesn't work, I might start deducing like Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, man, that sounds good.
Oh, that's really good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a 10. A 5.
Okay. So you're able roughly to trace the path that he went. Obviously, he's gone down anyway, so there's only one way he can go. And from the CCTV, you are 100% positive you've watched it all the way through. There's no way he came back out of the alleyway. So the only way he would have gone is down the alleyway. Now, as you look down this thing, you see upon the right wall, as you're facing this alleyway, basically the entire right wall is made up of this beautiful graffiti that is it's kind of been like sprayed through with neon highlights and things. Like, it's just this wondrous work of art. You imagine there are Toreador out there that specialize in like street art and stuff like that, but it doesn't really bother you that much. Like,
this is much more Donica's speed, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And he might like make a little mental note to think like, well, if I see this guy again, I might get him to do some art for the front of the club or whatever. And
dismissing the thought that you suddenly have that maybe Banksy's a vampire, I'm going to say that it's been 6 months, so you're right. The trail is going to be basically dead. But one thing you do notice is that there are what looks to be like grooves upon the very, very end of this wall. Grooves that almost look like handholds that rise up to the end of the alleyway. The alleyway is a dead end. So something would have had to have gone up. And it looks like you found the method of how.
Yeah, there's probably like a shot from like looking down onto the alleyway, and we see like Donica like looking around, and then he just does this. Like very slowly, and you can see him, and he'll like follow the handholds, and like I think to him, particularly with his like strength and his ability to move like an animal, he'll like will like I guess calculate it very quickly, like what the necessary amount of jumps and holds are to get to where he needs to go, and he will follow that path, I think.
And your climbing is very different to the climbing that would have been used to ascend this wall, because you're climbing and you with your talons and stuff, you sort of just grip to the wall and like you can hang upside down. It's effortless for you. But you would have seen the whatever made this climb was using its strength to like grab into the wall and actually like break away rock to like get a grip as it climbed. You reach the top of the building and you're admiring the night sky, and you can hear the familiar sounds of London blaring out beneath you. And you spot I'll say the investigation check will count for this area, so I'll say that you will spot this as well. You see what looks to be like a ripped piece of clothing. It appears to be the top half of a collar of a dress shirt, not a dress shirt, like a casual shirt. And you can see that it has been ripped away with some force, and it now lies like moldy from like rain and stuff like that, like on the top of this roof. And you can smell like certain smells on this thing. Perhaps it'll be helpful to your trail.
Yeah, he'll definitely like squat and like with his like disgustingly like long. It's actually very like if you've seen 30 Days of Night, the way he like plays the record with his. That's like I imagine how Donnacha's hands look, and he'll like pick it up with the long nails and like look at it, and then sort of grossly like get a whiff and see like what he can figure out from that.
Now, I'm not really sure how we're going to do this, but like I'm going to say, look, I reckon Nosferatu's probably have like amazing sense of smell. Well, all vampires do. So like,
Yeah.
I'm going to say that you're able to follow the trail roughly in the direction that you. It looks like it's sensible to go, like you said before. Like you've made like checks, like you were like, well, if I was going to climb this wall, I would do it like this, whatever. So able to do that, and you see that there is a logical path that would be taken to cross the rooftops. And you see, as you cross to the end of the building, you see that actually part of the ledge on the edge of the building would have actually broken off from the sort of the pressure of something leaping from this corner onto the next. And you see across the to the other side of the building familiar grooves where this creature would have landed, whatever it is, and sort of gripped the wall again to pull itself up. So you're able to trace this path with just little minute moments of destruction of the environment, and with that sort of smell and any kind of clue that you can, you're able to sort of slowly start following this trail across the skyline of London.
I think non-human, right? Like the way that it's gripping the walls is my impression that it's like pulling stone, as in that sort of strength, or is it like the way like a good climber might like leave a groove or something, like a human?
Definitely strength, and you imagine something with the agility and strength that would easily rival you, which is something that is a problem.
Yeah, that would freak Donnacha out a little bit. But he's annoyingly curious and fearless, so I'm going to keep going, even though I should really call someone for help. I'm going to sneak on and try and follow the path.
Yeah, and we're going to leave you there as you cross the skyline of London in pursuit of this old trail. We return to the Opera House, and the triumphant sort of climax of the opera is at hand, and you know, Don Giovanni is dragged to hell with the dramatic crescendo of the final moments of the piece, and then a rapturous applause that is really, really immense to you. And yeah, what's running through Siegfried's mind now as he beholds this?
It's like such a rush of feelings, of like emotions, like things that he hasn't felt in like a long time. It's, it's almost, it's not quite so extreme, but it's almost like coming out of like a depressive phase without knowing that you were in one. Just suddenly like the light comes out, the clouds part, and there's just like this rush of like genuine joy and appreciation, which is like so new, so foreign to him that it might as well be new. He'll actually kind of like lose some of the facade of vampirism for a bit, and they'll actually turn to Zia and just genuinely say, like, with utter truth and sincerity, "Thank you. Thank you for bringing me to this. This was astounding."
You're very welcome, but now I'm going to tell you something that you may not thank me for. And she gives you a smile, another smile. Like, this is worrying. Like, you saw how frosty she was before. Like, it's weird.
Yeah, his brow will kind of furrow. Like that look of like when you're having like a great day, but then somebody gives you that look of like, I have something to tell you, like that of bad news. Just that kind of like mixed feelings of like sudden anxiousness that will like kind of creep in, and he'll just kind of like raise an eyebrow and tilt his head and wait.
You made a promise to our Primogen. Or rather, your Primogen. I'm not governed by her, but I do respect her. And, well, Lala wants her aria that you promised so long ago. And so, when the audience has departed, you are to take the stage.
Kind of like look confused for a second. Here now?
When the audience has left, there will be a select few that will remain behind, a select few that are of our kind.
He'll kind of look down to the stage, which is now like clearing out as the company does their bows and moves away. The house lights coming back up. I can't say that I've warmed up or prepared. I don't know if I still need to, but kind of like say curiously. But if that's her will, and she's managed to clear some time in her undoubtedly busy schedule, then a performance she'll get.
Perfect. The kind that operate this theatre have been informed and, shall we say, influenced. You shall not be disturbed by them. I regrettably am unable to stay. I have work to attend to.
It's a shame that she'll miss it.
Perhaps another time. Perhaps a private aria next time.
Perhaps when you find time in your undoubtedly busy schedule, you know how to get a hold of me.
She gives a knowing look and gracefully rises, gives you a nod, and disappears into the throngs of people making their way to the exit. And so, Jeff, that gives you a little bit of time to think about what Siegfried is going to do with this surprise performance that's been landed in your lap.
Yeah. I think there's like this surprise, like as soon as she's out of the door and it closes, like this like calm, like sort of collected facade that he puts out will immediately like fade, and like nervousness will like come across his face as his mind will begin to rush, trying to figure out what he's gonna do.
Mute myself. There we are. Tough. You have sped across the city, and you are now going to make it just in time, just in the nick of time. You arrive at Carfax Abbey. As I prepare to describe this place to you, I would like you to make me an occult roll, please. I understand you have like a point or two in it. Occult and an intelligence, please.
This would be great because Toph's a super intelligent guy.
Well, this isn't going to be a particularly high check. It's really just seeing if you've heard about something to do with this place.
Oh, wow. I got 2 successes off 3 die. That's pretty good.
Okay, well, you've been in London a long time, so you would have picked up on this anyway. and it's something that's been maybe slightly bothering you. And I choose to bring up this now as you're sort of present at this place. Carfax Abbey is, well, it was a renowned goth club that, you know, in London. It gets its name, Carfax Abbey, from the home that Dracula uses in the novel when he comes to London. That's where it gets its name. So it's sort of like a stereotypical sort of vampirish thing to do. But what isn't known to many people in these modern nights, but is known to you because you maybe have been told, this used to be the headquarters, the meeting place of a certain movement that used to operate in London, a vampiric movement, one that you will know the name of. This is the old HQ of the Anarchs.
Ooh.
The writing Carfax Abbey, this used to be this like garish neon lettering, is no longer shines with any light. And you know that it's actually quite a tall building. It sits in a collection of 4 sort of towers almost, and it's the one sort of in the middle of them. And at its base, there would have been the club, but the offices and rooms above the place would have been sort of the meeting rooms, and the body of the HQ of the Anarchs. And now it stands there lifeless and empty, a ghost of a building as you arrive with celerity.
Toph's not one to usually worry too much about time and being punctual. But there's a certain drive that pulls at him when it's Sid that asks for his audience. So he's a bit nervous, and he kind of flips open his or pulls out his own phone. He looks at the time, and he's just got moments. So jams the phone back into his pocket and heads to the entrance of the building. He doesn't knock.
You look at your... Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say he just doesn't knock. He just kind of walks through the door, assuming he's probably been here a couple times.
Maybe so. But as you look at your phone, you notice that you have another text from Sid, and it just simply says top floor.
Okay, so he's kind of glad he checked his phone for the time because he wasn't even aware that his phone had gone off. So he goes to the top floor, probably not giving much attention. Unlike others, he really doesn't. He typically put too much attention to anything when his mind is on something. So yeah, he just makes his way to the top floor.
Yeah, doesn't feel great moving through this building. You make your way first of all through the club itself, and there's a layer of dust upon everything. There appears to be signs that are smashed in. In fact, a careful sort of eye would show that these rooms betray signs of attack, but from a long time ago, that would have been cleaned up and made to look like just general wear and tear. But you know what happened here. You've heard of the Night of Many Tears. So
it probably makes him a little bit more uncomfortable. You know, it's kind of like that walking across the grave feeling. So he probably goes a little bit quicker. He's probably glad that none of that Donica and Sig aren't here. He wouldn't want them to see him maybe exhibiting some traits of unease and fear. So yeah, he's going to quickly make his way to the top floor.
Yeah, absolutely. You reach the top, and as I mentioned, this sort of building, the upper floors are made up of offices and things like that. And like you're able to glimpse like through them because there's quite a lot of like open walls and things like that where you can just see sort of like construction pillars and stuff rather than not been masked by anything at all. It looks almost like a building site. And then you sort of swing open this door at the top of this staircase that sort of winds around in a sort of square like that. And everything is dark inside, and as you open this door, you see this vast office space that is just one room. There aren't any like partitions or anything like that. It's just one vast open space which makes up the diameter and space of the entire building. And right in the center, lit by what appears to be like construction lights, things that have been rigged with temporary generators that are active. There lies a body upon the floor.
So Toph hears the humming of these generators, and he kind of shifts his head, like that's going to give him a better vantage point, but it's just like a character trait from before when he was human, that still kind of hangs on decades later. And he starts to move forward. Sid? And he's kind of looking around. It's maybe a little bit more alert now than he was before. He's listening and smelling.
Yeah, there is no sound that responds to you in any way.
Sid? And he's probably nervous now because it's not like Sid to not be here. He pulls his phone back out. He's walking forward. Does it look to be a male or a female body?
It looks to be male. And it's, you are getting that uneasy feeling. Definitely to do with the fact that Sid isn't here. In fact, now that you actually focus, you know he isn't here. For every childer that is sired has sort of like an innate feeling of when they're around, their sire. They get sort of like that feeling. It's known as a blood bond.
Yep.
And cruelly and tragically, that appears to be missing as you approach the body and discover that lying there, rended as if from terrible battle, is Sid. He is drained. And he is dead.
Yeah, I think as he draws closer and he can actually see maybe something that distinguishes the body of Sid. Maybe it's a certain like blazer or something he wears or whatnot, a bit of jewelry or something. Once he sees that, he closes the distance very quickly, not worried about his own safety at the moment, and he just yells, "Sid!" And he runs and he just kind of drops on his knees next to the body, as you kind of described it there. And I think then after that moment, his hands are clenched, and that's when he's kind of baring his teeth and he's angry, and he's looking around, between looking down at Sid.
You feel like this wrenching feeling. Sid was someone who, while he was a distant sire, he was one that did take good care in ensuring that you could look after yourself. And all of that emotion sort of wells up within you as your Bruja fury like forces your fangs into large canines. You're like looking around with wild eyes, and then you hear a phone.
Is it coming from his pocket,
or is it from Sid's pocket? Is ringing.
Yeah, so he kind of just he's still breathing heavy, and he's not breathing. I keep saying that. He's not human, but he pretends it so much that he probably is. He reaches down, he digs through the bloody body and pulls out the phone, and looks at it.
The number reads unknown.
He hits he slides. Sid has like an iPhone. He's got a fancy phone. He slides it. Mm-hmm. Hello?
You hear like
covered with blood.
You hear the crackle of a weak line, like this. There's clearly some interference of some kind, crackling. Almost sounds like laughter for a moment. And then you hear a voice. Let there be light. There is a sudden wave of light as the building opposite the one that you are in illuminates. Every light within the window of the building opposite just comes on. And in each of the windows of the floor on the level of you in the opposite building, in each of the windows, a letter is daubed in red blood. Ripper. These tall letters seem to be leaking as if freshly painted there. And you see in each of the windows behind this dreadful, dreadful, horrendous writing, there are figures. 3 figures in each of one of the windows, spaced out. The voice says, "Hello, Toff."
Toff is holding the phone. It's starting to shake. There's a pop sound as the screen cracks, and he goes, "Who is this? Did you do this to Sid?"
Well, it's a simple question to answer. I'd say the writing is on the wall, but that's not technically accurate.
Toff would probably appreciate that humor, if not for the fact that his sire was dead.
I'm very pleased that you accepted the invitation to come here. The voice sends down the phone. I, of course, wanted you to feel welcome, so I brought along some of your friends. And you look carefully, like, across to this other building, and those 3 figures that are tied to chairs in each of the windows appear to be your bandmates. Your former bandmates. That's Ruben Cook, that's Vicente, and that's Renata as well, your female bassist.
No.
Looking carefully, you see that they appear to wear some device, each of them, around their necks. Now, we have a little bit of a situation here, Toff. See these pretty little necklaces that your friends are wearing? They have a nasty little surprise inside. They are rigged to blow. They'll blow up.
I don't understand what do they have to do with any of this?
It's because
what do you want?
Friends, Toff. They're your friends, and they're nothing but cattle. Like, you hear the voice suddenly become aggressive and angry, passionately angry.
Toff laughs. He goes, "Well, I guess that's where you're wrong. They're not my friends. I use them."
Is that so? Now, is that a lie? Do you reckon that's true?
No, it's not a lie. Toff was totally using them.
Yeah.
Well,
I
you
knew
know,
that might be the case, though.
No, that's not true.
True.
I think it's more lie than truth.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, this guy does not know the bloody business that Toff has already done this night.
That's true.
But I think that in his anger, he wants to believe it. It's not true, but he wants to believe it. I'll leave it to you to decide whether or not I can make a roll on that or not, because he is lying.
No, we can.
You can't spend the years that you spend with them, and there's a certain part they allow him to hold on to that humanity that he cherishes so much.
Absolutely.
So
you can make that decision yourself internally. I don't mind, because the voice down the phone doesn't seem to be too bothered. But he does continue, and he says, "If that is true, then you won't mind if I just push a little button.
Hold on. Wait. Okay. What do you want?
What do I want?
It's like a little growl at the end of when he says that.
I want you to show me the lengths that you will go to uphold your masquerade. You may, of course, with your strength of a Bruja, leap the distance between the building you're in and the building they're in, and reach them in time. You will, of course, be displaying your vampiric powers to 3 mortals, breaking the masquerade. The choice is yours. The phone hangs up.
Fuck. And there's a snap as he just crushes the phone, tosses it aside. He looks across the way. How far is it?
It probably about 60 feet.
Oh yeah, he could probably easily make that leap.
With celerity, correct.
Yes. No, yeah, we definitely need the speed of that and then using his potence to he just stares for a moment. He looks back down at Sid. He gets up, he just kind of just howls, grabs the nearest generator and throws it across this room. I imagine the generators aren't really big.
Yeah, you can do that.
Sure. I was looking at Toph's strength. I didn't realize how strong he was, but he's actually strong enough to take a motorcycle, throw it up over his head. So he takes one of these generators and throws it across, and he just looks at him. And this is now I didn't know that you were going to do this. But with Johnny's scenario, beginning of the scenario to now is such a conflict because where he murdered Johnny and had no sense of humanity in it, he has that now. He feels it, and he just looks across, and because he knows they're dead, he's not going to make the leap. He just smashes the other generator and picks up the remains of Sid, and he just looks kind of across the way at the Bloody Ripper, at his 3 friends that are probably going to die, and he just sorry. And he just slowly turns, and if he could cry human tears, he would. And I think probably the weight of everything, what he had done earlier this evening, just comes crashing down on him. And he's angry, and he just wants to break something, but he can't. It's not going to solve anything. And he realizes the frailty of who he is. He has solved so many problems by just smashing it in the face. And he can't solve that problem now. And he just slowly, defeated, starts to walk away carrying Sid.
And as you turn, just out of the corner of your eye, you watch as once, twice, 3 flashes just go poof, 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 with just enough explosives to remove a human head from its shoulders. Just poof. And the windows with Ripper written across them are just coated in blood. Donica, you've been following the trail, and it's brought you to the very outskirts of Soho, and indeed right across London. You actually find yourself having a little bit of a walk down memory lane. You see that you're approaching, you've been following this trail for some time now, whilst all the rest of this is happening. So you will have got to Battersea, which you might remember is the place where you first awoke. Battersea Power Station. It sits lifeless on the banks of the Thames. And you pass it, heading towards the Docklands. And you see that there, amongst shipping containers and the like, you see that there is a vast warehouse that sits upon the waterfront. And following this trail, you arrive at this dark building.
Is it the same building that we awoke in, like that same warehouse?
No, it's just in the area. I just thought you might like to know that you're close by.
Yep. I guess like as he like walks down the street, he'll notice that same thing that he noticed when he first left that building, which is that lights flicker when he walks under them, and like that everything seems to coincidentally work to hiding him. All these things just coincidentally happen, like if he trips or something, or like is about to step on a twig, there'll be like a of a car going by. Everything is sort of covered, and the whole world seems to work to keep him hidden and quiet. He'll notice that, and he's beginning to think that he's come a long way and he's far away from his allies, and he could be following a vampire, and that's probably a bad idea, particularly if this is their nest, because if it's anything like Donica's nest, it'll be well protected, and he knows all of that rationally, and yet he has this like hunger for information, and like now he's come this far, he doesn't really want to go home without results, and so he's going to try and enter into this building. Although he's not going to try and do it by the door, he'll try and like find another way in, because he's worried that if he just walks in the front door that there'll be trouble. So he's going to try and maybe climb a drain pipe, something like that, and come in on the second level.
Sorry, as muted. You absolutely can do that, and I won't make you check to do the climb. What I will ask a check for is, a simple alertness roll. Perception and alertness would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Alertness is I'm better at that one. Alertness is normal people, right? That's encouraging. And perception. 1, 2, 3. Uh-oh. Is it me?
Did we lose Rob?
Oh, god damn.
Yeah, it is Rob.
All right, I
Oh
thought
no.
You know, Lloyd, it's really crazy you going off all solo like that.
it's like entirely, it's always been Donica's bag.
But you know something, though? You're so good at it. I just think of the time we infiltrated Winchester to save Tess, and Donnie was all on his own that time too, and he just murdered so many of those agents.
Like the Nosferatu power set is incredibly good at like infiltrating and killing quietly. It's like really makes you a really terrifying sort of infiltrator spy, and it's so dumb, but it's entirely within Donica's wheelhouse and like personality to go on this on his own. Like it's really stupid that he would go on his own.
Yeah, it's just like such a funny contrast of like being so cautious to like tell everybody else like you have to be safe, you have to stay in contact, you have to follow the plan, you have to do what I say, we have to stick together, we have to help each other out, and then suddenly he's just like, oh, a strange trail that leads to a likely vampire or other creature nest. I'm gonna go by myself and tell no one.
Yep.
It's like
he has like a bit of egomania, I think. Like he thinks that he can do everything correctly, and
yeah, like we need to be careful so you can help us because you're good at it, not because there's an inherent danger to everybody. It's interesting, yeah.
Well, I also think come on, as if he doesn't have that feeling, that burst of juice, because he probably was like that before. Now he's kind of juiced up now that he's a vampire.
That's the best and worst part is that it's justified in a lot of ways too.
Guys, can you hear me?
Hey, yep.
Yes.
So my laptop crashed typically, but I thought if I logged in on my phone, I can stop it from cancelling the thing. Does that make sense?
Well, yes. Yeah. You've joined as you and not performance check.
Oh shit! I logged in as performance check. What the hell?
Okay. Strange. I don't know. I don't know if it'll make a difference or not. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll drop and see if I can be performance check. We'll see. Okay. Hopefully, I'll be back in time.
All right.
If not, then we'll just have to sort something out.
No worries. One of the things that I always think about becoming a vampire is it takes all the things that you kind of liked before and it like cranks those up into like obsessions, So like,
Yeah,
he
definitely.
would have like been pretty good at computers, but now he's like so fucking into it, and like would have been like quite a curious person. Now he like will not stop until he figures out what it is, you know, like. Yeah, I think that's interesting. Like it takes your impulses, whatever they are, and just like cranks them up a lot, you know?
I love that analogy.
Definitely, yeah.
It so fits because it's so true. And actually, Jeff, actually, I don't want to give away the experience, the conversation we're going to have at the end. I'm so tempted to because it's been such a great session. But
I think like in old, really old vampire stories, they would leave rice outside of a vampire's grave so that if they woke up, they have this like idea that vampires are obsessive and they would have to count each piece
you have to count it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
You would do that. You would spread the rice outside of your doors and your windows so that the night would end before they could come in and get you. Yeah, I remember reading that old myth years ago.
There's something kind of obsessive about it, maybe, you know?
Yeah, of like, well, because there's like, as a normal person, you're like bounded by like ability, so you can dream a lot further than you can act. So you can have this imagination of like, oh, I could be this like expert programmer who can just crack into anything and everywhere right away. But then you're kind of bounded by reality of like, oh, well, I have to work and I don't have that much time to practice, and whatever. And then but as a vampire, all those boundaries are just like gone.
Yeah.
So suddenly it's you can kind of ignore the reality that normal people have to fall into and just like give in to whatever crazy, strange visions and desires that like crack themselves into you.
So the other part of this, like following this dude, is like for a human, it'd be real difficult to climb that wall and like follow that trail. For me, it's like, well, whatever, I'll just jump, I guess. You know, it's like got all these like superpowers. I'll just like jump on top of this and follow over here, and yeah.
Hey guys, I'm just come back in. Any change?
No, it's still you as opposed to
Still you, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really well. It is the same address, so I'm wondering if
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the protocol is for the.
No.
Yeah.
Right. Well, my computer is, as usual, typically taking an eon to load. It'll probably be the perfect amount of time required for the live stream to stop if it is going to stop. So I don't know whether we just continue with me on my phone and see what happens, because I've only got like a tiny little bit left to do, and then we can wrap up. What do you think?
Easy.
Do we risk it?
Let's risk it for the biscuit. Let's do it.
Does it change if I do that? Is that better? Does it change?
Yeah, it gives landscape, so it's got more Big Rob.
Oh God, is it quite echoey though?
No, not at all.
It's fine, yeah.
Okay, fuck it. Let's just do it like this with me holding my phone. So, Donica, you what did you get for your alertness?
3, I got.
Okay. You hear the sound of something unmistakable, something moving within the warehouse, and it sounds like something is slamming against